So welcome everyone to today's social system mapping deep dive session, July 15th, 2024. Your host today, I'm Christine Capra, and Kara Martner are as usual. And if you have any tech needs, please ping Kara in DM or in the chat. Our agenda today is we're going to introduce ourselves in the chat in a moment. We're not going to do an intro to social system mapping. I keep forgetting to take that off the agenda, off these slides. And we have Tina Beck with us from the Just Economy Institute, not network. And we've made a map for Tina a little over 2 years ago with one of her members. And Tina's going to talk with us about their experience in the last 2 years and how it's gotten some traction with the membership. We'll start in a sort of a moderated format where I will sort of be interviewing Tina. If there are places in this no, I'll come to that, back to that in a minute. Then we'll have some questions and answers. And for those of you who want to stick around for just centering myself. I can see I'm getting ahead of myself. And Tina, I can't see Tina now. Oh yeah, now I can see you. Okay. Just in sharing my screen, I have fewer. I was afraid you had gotten dropped off or something. For those of you who don't usually join us, we have a sort of a formal hour session, which is the focus of what we came to do. And then I always stick around for an extra half hour. I don't know if Tina will be able to stick around for an extra half hour, but whoever wants to stay for the informal extra half hour after the top of the hour, just don't jump off at that point. And then we'll have we'll just open it up for more informal. Topic can change. We can just get to know each other, etc. So that's the optional post-session half hour. So let's go ahead and stop sharing. Do some intros in the chat, which is, for starters, if you could share, this is an invitation. Everything there's no like you have to about anything with us. So as you're willing, let's oh, Bonnie, I'm seeing the chat now. I was going to say I don't often look at the chat, but no, we'll do this. I appreciate it. It's not, I would cancel if I contemplated it, but it's not that bad. And this is a important piece of our week. And I appreciate the suggestion. So chat intros for starters. Name, pronoun, location is where we like to begin our getting to know each other. For those who are not often present, it's great to hear where you're coming from, especially. And Tina, in my mind, you're always on the other coast. I always imagine you on the other coast, which then when I think about it, I go, no, she's okay. Oh, Bonnie's in Bristol. We have a core community member who's also in Bristol, Melissa Henry, not assuming you know her, but yeah. Okay. And then one primary network you're working with. So Bonnie, are you aware of the of Tina's Institute? I'm just seeing there's
No, I don't think so, although I love the sound of it. I'm part of other new economy and transformational governance groups and things, but I don't know if Just Economy guys work in the UK. If they do, I love it.
Yeah, we actually have one fellow who just worked with us this last year. She's with the Good Ancestors movement. Um, do you know them?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Bethany, Robbie, yeah, and then a couple. I think we're gonna have two more fellows from the UK this next year.
Cool. Well, I look forward to hearing more.
Did you, Bonnie, it was seeing Tina's organization, was that what drew you to this session?
Actually, it was seeing how Co-Fund Eco use sumApp and Kumu together to create a sort of more participatory community.
Uh-huh.
And I have a Kumu map that's very static and owned by me, and
Uh-huh.
I kind of want to open it up and explode it. And so I'm really scared about how the hell I do any of that. So I thought I'd come along.
Got it. Well, that's a kind of a fun coincidence that there's overlap in your in terms of alternative finance. Okay. And then what brings you here today? What you're like, what's high on your what's up for you that you would love to get a chance to take away from this session? Okay. So, Tom, I love that not knowing ahead of time, but something always connects. That's fun. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I think Mary just showed up. And Mary, do you want to do a quick mic check?
Good morning.
Good morning. I hope your refrigerator got properly installed.
It's too big.
Oh, no. That sucks.
My son said the measurements were fine. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, if it is so if it were if Tim were saying that, he would be saying, I'm glad you made the mistake and not me, so I don't have to so you can blame your son, right? That's just a bad joke. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share and get started or introduce. So today we're gonna have Tina Beck, who's the Deputy Director of the Just Economy Institute, talk about, as I started to say, it'll be sort of an interview format. We created a map together a little over 2 years ago. And Tina was just a couple months ago, we were talking about making some changes to the map, iterating it. And Tina was telling me comments she was hearing from her community and saying how it's been a slow, gradual thing, but people are actually starting to like appreciate the map, and she's hearing good comments about the map. And I was like, oh, really? That's exciting. I rarely hear that kind of news. I mean, there's always a lot of excitement at the beginning, but depending on what you do with your map, there's it requires some intentionality to build interest in it, and it can be a big, oh, this is exciting, and then it kind of turns into not just a thing you have to sort of push on people to update yearly. And so when Tina said that, I thought, well, whatever she's doing, something is working that I would love to hear about more. And so I was tempted at the moment to start probing. And then I thought, oh, wait, maybe we could do this with other people present, and so that everyone else could both help probe as well as get the benefit of Tina's experience. So that's the background for today's session. We'll do it a little bit just like a relatively informal interview at first, because I want to sort of touch on a number of things and I want to make sure that we get them surfaced. So, and if while I'm interviewing, and then we'll open it up to questions and to your questions after that. But while I'm interviewing Tina, if there's something that one of us says that you just don't understand, like it's like, I don't get what you're talking about, or that it's enough of a clarifying, you have enough need for clarity that it's hard for you to continue to pay attention and to follow along, then feel free to interrupt. If it's not that urgent, then you can stay present and you can continue to follow. Then I'll ask you to hold questions until we get to the end, and then we'll take them one at a time. So, any high-level questions before we get started? I'm gonna ask you, since I can't see all of you, if you would raise your electronic hand, because that will put you at the top, and then I will know that your hand is up. Otherwise, if you just raise your physical hand, I might not be able to see you doing it. And so I will ask you to the best of your, if you're able, raise your electronic hand. So first I thought we'd start. So welcome, Tina. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited and appreciative. And and the other framing thing I was just going to say is, and Bonnie, this especially maybe is important for you. We're not going to look at Tina's map. It's a private map, and we didn't. This isn't an on-ramp, and an on-ramp is where we usually show a map and walk through a map, engage with it. And so we're not going to look at the map. We're going to talk about it. And just also, Bonnie, for today's session, we're looking at sort of after the map is made is really the period of time that we're looking at. So there's a whole lot of other resources for getting started, and I have office hours on Thursdays. Probably it's the middle of the night for you. So I want to just say there's I I would do a thing, but I'm not gonna do.
Well, screw you too, Christine.
Yeah, okay.
I'm out of here. No, it's really interesting that we're so closely related in what we're doing. So I'm sure it'll give me loads of ideas about how this could work for me. So don't feel you have to explain.
I want you to feel like your needs are important, and
I will take responsibility for meeting my needs
great.
throughout. You offer loads of resources. Thank you, Christine.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so Tina, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself, and maybe we could start with just a little background about the Institute, who's in the map, what made you get started, or what made you want to create a social system map in the first place?
Okay, well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I've watched a few videos of your past deep dives, and it's so great to see familiar faces from those videos. I appreciate that this is really truly a community of practice. So thank you for inviting me to participate. Like Christine said, we started talking about creating a map for our community. The Just Economy Institute is a community of financial activists. It's for people who want to and are actively shifting the flow of capital in all its forms away from the extractive practices and towards a more regenerative economy. It's basically people who want to shift the flow of capital to where it needs to go and not where it traditionally has been going. And it can be isolating for people to do this because it's not traditional finance. And a lot of times when people are trying to create new paths, they're seen as fringe outsiders, people who don't know what they're doing. They're just crazy. And we wanted to find a way for people to share resources, to actually create community, and to be able to collaborate with each other, because we know we can't do this work on our own and we can't keep working in silos. So one of our fellows, so we've been running this program. We're now entering our 8th year. Every year we invite about 28 people to join us in this fellowship program. And one year, about 4 years ago, one of our fellows mentioned the social system map. He had done some work with Christine through his through another one or two of his organizations. He's based in Peru and focused on regenerative agriculture. And he just loves the social system map, and he loves Christine, and he just kept telling us about it. You need to do this with your community. You need to do this. And at the time, there were only two of us on staff, hosting this community and running an annual program. And mapping is not for the two of us, our brains don't really work in this way in mapping. We saw how beautiful the Kumu map looks, and how the idea of mapping our community could be useful and fun. So we understood that part of it, but the idea of building it and really thinking through how it could be useful for our fellows and for us as an organization, it was beyond our capacity. So we wanted to do it, and we agreed to have informational calls, and Mauricio connected us with Christine, and we just started talking about, how does this work? How would we build it? We're not able to do it our own. We don't have the technical capacity. And Christine and Tim we talked through how we could partner with them and how we could start building it. And the way we started to do that was bring in some folks from our community and have them serve as a little mini cohort to help us think through what would be helpful and useful information for each other, for all of them to know about each other. And we just started talking through that. And I think that might have taken about 6 months. It wasn't very long, maybe 6 to 9 months of coordinating calls and sessions with Christine, where she could talk about what the social system map is and what it's not, and help train this little mini cohort of ours. And then we developed a survey, and we sent it out to our community. And this was in 2022. So we were hosting an alumni gathering in August of 2022. And so we set a deadline for ourselves to be able to send out the survey to our community. I think it was in June that we sent it out, because we wanted to be able to have some data, have a map built, and show it at the alumni gathering, because we knew that would be one great way for people to actually engage with it if they hadn't yet, or for people to start seeing the power of our mapping our community. And so we did that, and we were surprised. We did get a good bit of a response, and had a nice looking map at that time. I think it was somewhere around 50% response rate, where people actually engaged. They updated their profiles, and we were pretty happy with that, because we had a little over 100 fellows and alumni at the time. So we were excited about that. There were a handful of people who were really excited about it, and they were sort of acting as ambassadors and talking to their own cohorts and trying to engage their own cohorts to get on there, so that it became a little bit of a healthy competition type of thing, where people wanted their cohorts to be all on there. And so we know we have the support for engagement. Engagement is not really an issue for us. I think where we want to do better is with facilitating this map, and iterating on it and getting it to the next stage, because we've been at a standstill where we continue to invite new people every year. And we decided to invite not just the fellows who have gone through the program, but also the advisors that we have as part of our program. We probably have about 20 or so advisors we've invited, and then allies, people who have been a part of our community since the very beginning, the past 8 years, serving as advisors to our team, but not necessarily the fellows. So we have over 200 people on our map, and I think 118 have actually gone in and engaged with their profile and their map in some way. So again, it's somewhere around a little over 50% response rate. And I think that's pretty good. Of course, we do want to grow that. I'd be curious to hear if that's typical, Christine, for engagement percentage.
Well, I mean, there's a big range, but I think that's in the better, in the range of fairly good.
Fairly good. I'll take it. The thing is, we know we can get more people on it, and we're hosting another alumni gathering this September. So we see this as another opportunity to get more people engaged, or to get people to update their profiles. Our hope was that every year, at least once a year, we would reach out to people with a reminder to update their profiles, with an update, with some changes to the questions in the survey. And we haven't done that yet. So we're hoping to be able to do that now, leading up to the next gathering.
So, just a couple really basic questions. I know, because we've been working on, I mean, we've supported this. I know when you get every new cohort, you add that list. What I don't know is, when you add new people, are you then sending the invitation to everybody or just to the new people?
Just to the new people,
Not-
the new
you're-
28.
You're not asking everybody to update it.
No, we're not. That's a really good point, though. We could welcome the new cohort on there and let everybody else know they're on there. Yeah, that's a good point. We do have an in-person gathering with the new 28 every year, in the middle of their program, where we invite them, and then we actually walk through it with them. We do a tutorial with them in person. So a lot of the newer people are on there, but it's the first few cohorts who had already gone through the program by the time we open this, who haven't really engaged as much.
So, and then I'm curious, so you just said part of it. I know you're doing a push during the annual meetings, and you're introducing it to new cohorts.
Right.
Are there other points and so in the annual meetings, are you sharing it with the whole group, or are you just asking them to update it?
We will have it up on we'll have a screen and projector. We host our gatherings at a ranch, so the bandwidth is limited, so we're not able to set up. The first year we set up a bunch of laptops and we asked people to go update, but the bandwidth was not very strong, and so laptops kept crashing. So that was not very successful, but we do, whenever we have check-in calls individually with people and they're asking for connections or resources, I always tap into our social system map, and I'll often share my screen and show them what I'm doing so that they can start to do it on their own, because that was really what we wanted. We didn't want to build this community of practice and have everyone have to come through me and our executive director to find connections and contacts and resources. We wanted them to be able to do this on their own. And I think it's kind of like what Bonnie was saying in the chat, just wanting people to own their own profiles and really make this useful for them without having to come through us all the time.
So, and then are you finding, so it sounds like, so I remember that desire of not having people come through you, and it sounds like there is at least an initial, they're still coming through you, but you're sharing the map with, I mean, it's the coming through you isn't that you're delivering answers to them, but you're sharing the map with them.
I think it's both. I think there's some people who still come through us, and then we will show them the map. But there are at least a dozen fellows who we know are just going straight to the map, and they're doing it on their own. I'm starting to track them, because as I'm thinking about the next iteration and tweaking or updating some of the questions we asked in the original survey, I'm thinking about the possibility of bringing together another mini cohort to help me through that. Because again, this is not the way my brain naturally works. And also I'm interested in hearing how our fellows are using it and how we can do more, rather than just going based on our assumptions of how we think they are using it and should be using it. So I know there are people who are going on there. We had one fellow who during a transitional period went on a road trip across the US, and he mapped all of our fellows in the US, and practically every stop he made, he connected with other fellows in our community. And he would send us photos of their meetups, and it was really cool. But I think that's the main use for our community at this point. It's just mapping where people are so that when they're at conferences, they can connect with others.
Uh-huh. And then, are there any other like structural or intentional places where you are showing the map to members of the community, or referring to it, or giving them some kind of information about things in the map?
We're not necessarily using or showing it to a lot of people because it is private. I'm thinking about our funders, people
Yeah.
who support our program. We're using the data in the map to share information with the funders, but we're not necessarily sharing the map with them. Although I have to admit, I have shared our map or walked through it with maybe 4 or 5 people who are just outside our community, but are interested. They heard about the map and they were interested in learning more about it and wanting to figure out if they could possibly do it with their own community. And so I have had calls with them and shared our whole process and connected them with you a couple of times.
And when you shared it with them, with the funders, what was their response?
A lot of them are really, they love the idea of it. Sometimes we'll just take a snapshot and show a snapshot of what it looks like. If they're interested in learning how many people in our community are focused on regenerative agriculture, we can look that up. And we always say this is based on the folks who have responded to or updated their profiles.
Yeah. And what about within the network of the members? Are there other ways that you're sharing the map, like times when you're putting it in front of them, aside from when they're calling you to connect with others, or at the annual meeting? Are there other times that you're intentionally doing that?
No, not really. I mean, if there are other suggestions on how we can do this, I would love to hear more about how other people keep this alive for their communities without continuing to ask people to make updates. Because I mean, I think what we would like to do is to get to a point where we don't have to make a case for it anymore. We don't have to explain the value of it, that it's just, and for some of our fellows, that's already true. They already know the value of it, and they're using it, they're singing its praises to everyone they talk to. So I know we have some of those people in our community, but for the other folks who are slower to adopt this, I think that I'm hoping it will be easier as we continue to iterate. And maybe that's not true, but.
Well, it's interesting to me because as I listen to you, you're not doing a whole lot more than the basics. That, you know, like the most fundamental things that I think most people do. And it seems like you're getting more traction. So so I'm sort of listening for what are you doing. So one thing though is I don't know how many like stewards of networks, or the leaders, like the top, you know, the leaders who are the most visible and prominent and influential, actually think, oh, let me pull up the map and share it with people. I've seen lots of situations where there's, you know, that level of leadership, and the person who's most engaged with the map is not at that level, is somebody else, and they're not. I think that you, not to be hierarchical, but I think that your prominence and your influence, and the fact that you're pulling it up when people are looking for something, I'm thinking that's not super common, and that is really I'm suspecting that's a big piece of influence. Does that?
It's interesting. I didn't think about that. And when, for 6 years, there were only two of us. So I was doing all of the administrative stuff too, as well as running the program. And so I don't think about, I guess I've never thought about my title in that way, but maybe that could be true. I also want to say we do have, because the social system map is not a way for people to connect with each other. We do have another platform where people connect with each other and share resources and ask for help, and that's pretty it's a pretty robust conversation that's happening on there. And so I think we know that we have a tight-knit community. And so I'm wondering if that's part of why we have a higher response rate.
Yeah.
Based on how little we actually do.
That was the other that was another thing I wanted to ask you about, is because I was wondering, is there is there a relationship, and this isn't a question you can literally answer like yes there is or no there isn't, but like I was pondering this and wanted to chat with you about the potential that there's something about your theory of change and or the culture of your network that makes it likely that people, and not everybody's going to be psyched about a social system map in every context, no matter what. But so like, we're not trying to get everybody to be, waving flags about the social system map every day, but that makes like something about your culture and your theory of change that inclines people to get it, like that makes it more an easier lift for people getting it.
Yeah, it could be. I think we have a very special, I think very unique culture. It's our program is not a financial training program. It's more for financial activists to find community. And so that I think is the biggest takeaway from our fellowship program. It's knowing that they're not just entering into a 9-month program and then when they're done, they're done. But that this is going to be an ongoing community that they will be a part of and can always come back to if they ever need any support. And so I think that we do invite people to participate who are open to the inner work, the recognizing that they need to do the interpersonal work in order to be able to do the work for their own communities. And so I think they are open to these kinds of things, not just focusing on their day-to-day work, but recognizing the power of community, the need to take care of themselves, like when they're sick, and just being held in community that's just a huge part of what we do as an organization, supporting the community. And so when they see that being modeled from us and our team of advisors and faculty, and then they start doing that, and other people, everyone is seeing that happening on the other platform where someone raises a question or asks for a connection, and a dozen people will chime in and say, ping me, I have something to share with you, or they'll just post it to the other platform. And so I think just seeing that in practice does lend itself to being open to what this map could look like, or could be, and how it could help the community grow. I think there are a lot of people, when we just shared it with this last cohort, there were a lot of people who were really amazed by it. They were really excited about this, but I don't think they really knew how it could be useful. Like it was like oh my God, kind of like how I first thought about it. Wow, that's so cool. That's so beautiful. And that would be awesome to have. But I can't think past, I can't think how it can really be useful other than the geographical map. pinpointing where people are. So I want to go to the next level. I want to think through like finding gaps and finding ways that we can more intentionally connect dots.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'm happy to, look forward to thinking some of that through with you a little bit, going forward. And I'm wondering if you're seeing, and I'm sort of just about done with my questions, but as you're talking about the sort of the community being sort of already primed in a way, already valuing community and mutual support and that sort of thing, and already being seeing importance in the being part of the work as well as the doing part of the work. If there's any way that you see the map, so on the one hand, we don't want to say, oh, well, your community just has to be in the right place before this is going to be helpful, right? I mean, but like if there's you can see any piece of a feedback loop between the map supporting supporting that community mindedness, as well as that the community mindedness was already there, which made it, in some ways, makes it easier for people to step into seeing the value. Is that clear what my question is?
Not really. I'm stuck on the feedback loop though, and I am seeing that happen. And if I'm not answering your question,
No, you got it. I think. Go ahead.
But yes, when we see that there's a little affinity group based on impact in investing, and Bonnie, I'll try to get to your question too. Like for instance, with the impact investing, people who are focused on that and want to learn more about that and share ideas and resources around that. There's actually now an affinity group that's happening where they're checking in and having calls once a month, and there's an educational component to it. And so that has been really cool for us to see that we have a lot of people who are focused in this area of impact. And it might be helpful for them to actually connect and maybe host a call. And so we've seen that happen. So that, I don't know if that's what you were kind of getting at with the feedback.
Yeah, that was whatever was there, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that has been really helpful to see. And so that's when I'm saying I want to think more about intentionally making connections. That was one thing that did happen that we're like, oh, we could do more of that if we just have more time or capacity to invest in this as a tool. And Bonnie, to answer your question, we map a lot of things, but I don't really think that we map where our fellows are, what they're focused on specifically, but we have categories. So impact areas, we have like what any needs and offers. I think some of the typical questions or some of the typical things that that I see on a lot of other maps. But I'm curious if that's something that you're specifically looking into doing or are doing with your map. And if you're talking about specific things that they're resourcing.
And let's just go ahead and open it up now and just have, yeah, I'm done. So yeah, Bonnie, you were going to respond to Tina's.
Sure, if now is the right moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the purpose of our map would be a bit different. So rather than mapping the community of people that we're working with, it would be to allow all of our funded partners to be visible to each other, but also for people who haven't been funded by us to also add themselves, so that our wider understanding of what the sector is that we're supporting is greater than just the people that we know already, so that it's more open and less who do you know. And then also for that whole agroecology community to be visible to funders. So we'd also map all of the people who fund us and all of the stakeholders that are already funding in food and farming in the UK. And then other people might want to come in and also add themselves to the map, so they can also see that community. And then we start to connect them up and see who's already funding who and who's co-funding. So how they can, like, maybe that leads to more shared reporting, or people saying, okay, we're really interested in funding farmer peer knowledge networks. Who out there is doing it? Because I've found that a lot of funders want to get into a particular sector, but they don't actually know anyone in that sector. So they're not very connected to the grassroots. And so they trust the gatekeepers in the middle, people who can connect them to the grassroots. And we are one of those, but I don't want to be a gatekeeper. I want to be a bridge builder. I don't want to be the one that holds all the relationships and divvies out my friends to the funders. I want it to be visible and for them to be able to find each other. And obviously our role would then be as a catalyst to make sure it stays lively and populated and people know how to use it and where to find it, and, you know, bring opportunities to find value in it. But for your community, it could be that some people are funding into things that are of real interest to other people in your community. So you could be flowing more resources into things through the networks that already exist there. Yeah, so I was just interested if you were using it in that way, because that's why I want to do this.
I love that. So it's an open map. It's not private. It's totally open. Yeah.
Denise, I see your hand up and I'm absolutely going to come to you in a moment. And what I'm thinking about, Tina, as I'm hearing Bonnie, is so one of the things I'm remembering it was when we were building your map, some concern among funders about sharing their funding, either capacities or behaviors or something like that, because they didn't want to be, they wanted to be part of the community. They didn't want to be seen as a source of revenue for people to just be coming to them. And so as Bonnie's talking, I'm thinking, I bet Tina has some experience with that you might like point to some of the potential challenges that Bonnie might run into, not to say don't do it, but to say, think about it from this perspective. And I was just wondering if you had any little things coming up for you like that.
Just to give you some context, Tina, we're not talking about individual philanthropists or wealth holders. We're talking about family foundations and philanthropic foundations that might already map their grants on 360 giving, but they're hard to search and not very visible.
Yeah, I figured as much. So when you were talking about it, I figured that it was often that people were actually wanting to be seen and wanting to be known as an entity that is funding these areas. So because that, Christine, you're right, that was something that we were concerned about, and not just individuals and people representing organizations wanting to hold that private just for our community members, but also the amounts, not just where their funding is going, but how much capacity they have to share. And so, yeah, we wanted this to be more for each individual person rather than mapping the organizations that they're connected to. Although that was a question in the early days, we wanted to know, can we do both? And it looks like now you do have that ability to map both individuals and organizations and the cross connection between. So that's something new that I want to talk through or think through with my team. If we still feel the need for that, or if we feel happy with mapping at the individual level.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So, Denise, your question, your comment.
Thank you both for the interview. It's great. I had a few comments and questions for you, Tina. Ignore the ones that don't make any sense. Because I wrote that I'm part of the Network for the Advancement of Black Communities, but I'm also part of another network called the Weaving Lab. And so some of the things that you're thinking through, we're thinking through at the same time. And in terms of the platform that you have, that you said where a lot of discussion happens, the Weaving Lab has a lot of discussions that happens on WhatsApp. So my question to you is, what is your connection between the map and that other platform? How do they speak to one another?
they don't.
Okay, so I
Only
have,
digitally.
okay. So I can give you a suggestion on what we're doing for this question of overall question, sorry, of sustainability. So what we're experimenting with is actually doing, so we, as in we have about 4 people that are kind of the core map stewards who are really interested. And we sourced out those people from a set of questions we asked in the survey. So people that are just interested in keeping the map alive, that's our 4. And what we do is once a week, we actually do we do an activation report on the map. So how we're using the map. So somebody might say, oh, this is a new feature, put a little video blurb of it and throw it into WhatsApp to kind of prompt the people on WhatsApp who are already on the map. Hey, the map is still around. And or another member did like a word cloud of all the data you can mine in the map. Hey, this is how cool it is. So what we keep it very informal, but what we find exciting personally about the map. So for instance, I found someone who was a historian and I never thought I would have found a historian. So I just mapped my journey, 30 seconds, little bleeps. So I'm just thinking you might want to think through if you have a core team, maybe they could share what it is that actually excites them personally about the map and how they use it in that other platform to remind people in the other platform that the map exists. And I'd be happy to speak to you about it a little bit more if you want after Christine can connect us. And the second thing that we're doing, and we did that was really fun, is we had fun with it. We actually had a weaving party. So we actually had a map party. We invited everyone to a party where we used the map as a way for people to meet each other. So we played this game. We do it with another gentleman named Ben Roberts called You've Been Woven. So what we did is we had like breakout groups of 4 people. Everybody search somebody on the map who you think is interesting, send them a little blurb, send them a video note. I can do it. But the point is, in terms of points of connection, maybe it's not just once a year. You could do that once every 3 months. It's not very hard to organize, but people kind of network, but they seem like they're already close. But you also have fun just sending like little messages to people who are also in the map. Again, it's just another reminder the map is there. You send out a connection, or 4 people might say that we think you should meet this person here or there. So I just wanted to throw 2 possible ideas out to you to how you could continue to keep the map alive. And I just wanted to double check when you were saying about your second iteration, you said you were going to use a cohort. Were you also going to invite the entire mapping community to actually think through how they might want to see differences in the map, or were you just going to work with a cohort?
Yeah, we haven't really thought through that. I was not excited about inviting the whole community to engage. Because it's over 200 people now, and so it's something that I guess what we were thinking is if there were a couple dozen people who wanted to or offered to support us, that often takes more energy and time to corral a larger group. And so we were thinking we would just handpick a handful of people who we know are using it and are excited about it and talking about it, and just tap them for additional support, a little bit of support, just a few calls. But if you have had experience engaging the whole community and opening it up, and
Well, yeah, and I don't want to tell you what to do. I can tell you how we
No.
did it, and just because I think what the Weaving Lab map has is a lot of buy-in, and I think part of the buy-in was the process in which we started it. We invited, but we didn't force. Like we made out invitations where, hey, we're looking to do this map. We're going to have small conversations of 5 people each. What would you be looking for in the map? We probably sent it out to like 300 people and maybe 50 responded. So you'll never get everybody responding. And so we had like maybe a week of different times where people could come and meet and say, oh, this is what I'd like to see. This is what I'd like to see. And then from there, we drew out people like what you're saying, pulling out people who might be deeply invested into the map. So we ended up with a map that a lot of people found useful because they had a lot of say in it from the beginning. So, and then if people couldn't actually come to a meeting, we offered them and shared with them the Miro board that we were using or the Google document so they could read, or they could put their input in WhatsApp as well. We also created like a mapping group within our WhatsApp. I'm not telling you to go that extensively, but I'm just the benefit, I understand what you're saying, as an in person, it's like a lot of work, but the other benefit is that people really feel they have a part of
Yeah.
the map. And then if they're not interested, they won't respond. So that would be it. And the only thing is I would love to stay, but I have to leave at 12. So if I disappear, that's why. So I want other people
All
to
right, thank you.
see the screen. But thanks, that's great.
Thank you, Denise. I would love to check in with you after.
Yeah. One more. Let's do one more brief, and then we'll have Kara do announcements, and then we'll do our little goodbye ritual, and then we'll see who is still around. Does anybody have one more question or comment for Tina? All right, then let's let Kara do announcements. Wait, let me pause before Kara. I'm sorry, Kara, to do this to you. I want to say that my headache is going away. So you guys' lovely faces and smiles was probably one of the things that I was on one hand dreading, the other hand needing. So I have this way of making these sessions, like there's some self-talk that makes them, I always dread them before I get started, even though I love everybody who shows up and it's all stuff. I mean, there's just a way that there's like some deep expectation of performance in me or of something. And sometimes my headache is worse at the end of it. And sometimes, but then other times I discovered that, oh no, actually what I needed was just to see those lovely smiling faces and hear their voices. And now I feel better. So this is another reason why it's hard, Bonnie, to say, yes, I'm going to cancel, because it's like, who knows? It could be this way or that way. And Tina, I wanted to see if there's any little sort of like last thing you wanted to say, just summary comment or appreciation or thoughts before we.
Yes, so much appreciation for this group and this community, and I'm excited to dig into this more. This has been something I have been putting off and putting off and putting off, but just seeing the excitement in these conversations through the videos I've seen, and then also today, just really appreciate you welcoming me and inviting me to share my experience, and hoping to be a bigger part of this community now.
That's great. And I know you know this, but we're all learning together. And like Denise has been an amazing sort of out there, engage with people, doing it, getting ideas, actually implementing the ideas. And so she's probably even better to talk to than I am about engagement. But just everybody's experience and different ways of approaching it is really rich and generative for all of us. So just love having you be present and getting an opportunity to hear from other people as well and connect with others.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Kara, for
not worry.
priming you and then like putting the plug in and pulling the plug out. Okay.
It was good. The anxiety level has gone down.
Okay.
I had some space to sit with
Maybe
it.
I should start forewarning you a minute. Okay, and then
That might be helpful. I might take that.
we're
So that you are aware of our upcoming community of practice sessions. And I'll just go in order of our normal format. So the first Monday of the month is always our sense making session. The next one will be coming up on August 5th. Currently, Amy and Curtis are leading those, so we'll be enjoying hearing from them next month. And then on our second Mondays, we have our on-ramp sessions. That will be on August 12th. Ben Roberts will be joining us, so we have a map to share. It is a new map. It is the Summit map. And Ben has been doing some convenings, I believe, over this past month, kind of around the map. So there should be a lot of engagement and activity to take away from those events. And then our third Mondays are our deep dives like today, and then our next one will be on August 19th. And then our kind of spontaneous fourth Monday events are alternating, but this one will be a tech talk, and Amy Moritz will be leading that. And it's sort of part 2 of Tim's header maker fancy spreadsheet. So if you have a lot of data or you need to get a lot of questions into your survey, that is a great tool to use to not make that a big headache. And so Amy will be walking through that with us, and then I'll put links in the chat in just a moment.
So For those of you who aren't familiar with it, we have a goodbye ritual or an ending ritual, which is we all unmute. So go ahead and do that now. I will count down 3, 2, 1, and then we just all verbally together at the same time give each other our well wishes, our appreciation, our love, or whatever for the rest of the day. And as soon as you've done that, you can feel free to jump off. And if you want to stick around for the optional extra half hour, please just don't jump off at that point. So ready? 3, 2, 1. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Wonderful to see you
Nice
this
to
morning.
see you.
Appreciation for everyone.